Hello and welcome to another Cheeky Scientist Radio. I'm your host, Isaiah Henkel, and today we will be talking with Yara Pujol on careers in clinical research. As always, if you want to learn more about transitioning into an industry career, go to phdsgethired.com and put your name and email address on the page, and you'll get free information on our blueprint specifically for PhDs who want to transition into industry, and you'll learn how to get access to our PhDs only job referral network. There are over 4,000 PhDs in this network now, and you can get access to it again by going to phdsgethired.com. If you want to get our blog articles and these podcasts sent to you free every week, just go to cheekyscientist.com and sign up on our homepage. And finally, if you want to listen to all of our podcasts, go to iTunes. You can find us just by searching Cheeky Scientist Radio and subscribe to our iTunes page. So once again, today we will be talking with Yara Pujol on careers in clinical research starting now. Very excited today to have on Yara, and it's Yara Lopez, correct?
Pujol Lopez, yes.
Pujol Lopez, that's right. Yara Pujol Lopez. Pretty good, right? So Yara obtained her bachelor's degree in biology in 2008 with a specialization in sanitary biology at the University of Barcelona. University of, it's an A word that I can't quite say, but Barcelona in Spain.
Autónoma of Barcelona, yeah, one of the universities.
Perfect. Thank you. In her hometown, she conducted her final internship in the Center of Human Reproduction, Biogest, also in Spain, under the supervision of Carolina Matas. Then she started her master's in human reproduction in Madrid, conducting her final internship in the Center of Infertility and Human Reproduction in Barcelona, Spain, at the CIRH. Her next step took her to the academic world, from the academic world to San Francisco in the U.S., mostly to improve your English, you say, right? Good place to do it. And from there, she rejoined the academic world and moved to Munich, Germany. In 2011, she began her Ph.D. at the Clinic of Psychiatry and Psychotherapy at the Ludwig Maximilian's University, so LMU. That makes it easier. Under the supervision of Dr. A. Mu Miant. It's good practice for me. In 2013, she moved to the Netherlands to continue her PhD at the School of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Maastricht University.
Yeah.
So you nailed it. Under the supervision of Professor Henry Steinbusch and several other professors. During these years, she investigated the developmental and psychoneuroimmunological mechanisms in depression. In 2015, got your PhD, of course, and then 2016 began to work as a clinical research associate in the CRO MedPace medical device in Vaals, in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
So great. And now you've been transferred to your same company, but in Munich, where you are working currently.
Yes.
Yes. So welcome, Yara. Thank you. That was a great background. I like it because you were in academia, left, went back, now you're in industry. And I think it's important to show that you're able to cross those barriers much easier today than you were 20 years ago. So it's great to have you on with your experience. Thank you for joining us. And we have, look at everybody's welcoming you. So thanks everybody for welcoming Yara. So we're going to jump in with a question that we always start with is, why did you want to transition? So you did all this time in academia, you went back to academia. What was your reason why in terms of going into industry?
Well, I had a quite, I would say, complicated PhD. Probably everyone feels the same, but in my case, I began it in a foreign country, so not in my country. My idea actually was to stay in Germany, finish the PhD in Germany, but then plans changed, and my supervisor got her PhD in the Netherlands, in Maastricht. So she wanted me to go there for some experiments because the lab was better equipped there. So without having that in my mind, I needed to move country again, go to the Netherlands. In the middle of the story, she retired. So I needed to change supervisors. And at some point, I was just having contracts of 2 months. So So I never knew what was going to happen next. The thesis was still not finished. And yeah, at some point I got tired of that. Also, if I wanted to continue in university, so the next step was to have or to do a postdoc. And I am not a really writing person, so I had really a hard time when I needed to write the papers and the thesis. So I couldn't imagine like needed to, write grants and like continue with that process of writing and writing to be able to do some practical work in the lab at the end. So the two things combined, and the fact that at some point I just wanted to do something applicable, something that I could see that it would be useful and in benefit of someone in a short period of time.
Yes.
So
like your lifetime.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it was clear that that I wanted to change. I didn't want to continue in the university.
So this is good, and I don't think either of these topics have been brought up so directly before, but a lot of us have that desire to see our work be applied to something in our lifetime, or like you said, even sooner, right? In the next, few years even. It'd be nice to see that effect. And I think this is a reason that a lot of PhDs leave academia, is because there's not that outlet in academia. Some institutions have, there's tech transfer offices, and some of them have, attachments to spin-offs and companies, but it's not a very direct path. So I think that's a reason that a lot of PhDs transition. I also like what you said about hating writing. It's almost one of these things we're not supposed to talk about. But I like writing, but I did not like writing papers and grants. So I'm curious, for those of you on here, how many of you hate or mildly dislike writing papers and grants, right? And just can't see yourself doing that for the rest of your life. I bet that's not just you and me, right? So hate.
I see.
Felipe says yes. Hate, yes. Dislike. I know. I can't stand it. For me is probably the perfect word, but maybe it's mildly. Slowly raise his hand, Ralph. All right, great. So okay, so that's the reason why. So now I want to talk a little bit about the transition process. We have a lot of people on today who are interested in kind of the clinical side of things. So maybe you can talk about how you got into the job that you're in right now. Like, what did the process look like? Was it standard? You networked, got a referral, phone screen? Maybe you can just walk us through it from A to Z.
Yes. So it became the point that I was first done with the thesis. And then the question is, and now what next? Because you always are in university, so you always are supposed to have later on a postdoc and maybe become a scientist, etc. But then when you decide to break that path and go in another way, you don't know what's there outside. So that's the first thing that you need to figure out, like, what can I do? At that point, I had a colleague in Maastricht who was a member of the association. And then she told me, look, there is this association and they are helping me a lot, so maybe you could also join. So I did that. And then I began to work through the modules, and then I began to discover that there is a huge world outside academia, that there are a lot of different positions that you can get to. And then, I began to work in my LinkedIn profile, so just like following the modules and also like being active in the Facebook group. And then I saw that my target would be like 2 or 3 different positions that I thought that would be a good profile with me. And then through these works that took maybe like 3-4 months, also I began to write people working in these positions through LinkedIn to ask about their experience, about how they would suggest me to get to this kind of position, what was the story for them, etc. And people replied. I mean, it might take some time because people is busy, is working, etc. But you get a lot of information back that is very useful. And then at some point one day, a recruiter contacted me and then asked me if I was interested in, actually the beginning was a project coordinator position in the company in MedBase. So I thought it could be a good fit, and we began to talk. But then in the meanwhile, this position was covered. So he told me, but they have also a CRA position available, if that would be in your interest. I was like, yeah, actually, I was targeted like CRA position, project coordinators, and product specialist positions at that point. And then we had a phone call. Then he contacted me with the company. I had a first call with human resources, HR. They wanted to know a bit about my background, what I did before, and the languages that I could speak. That was a very important point because the company was located in the Netherlands, but they were having a lot of studies in Germany. So actually, it was better if you could speak German, and Dutch was not really necessary.
Oh,
yes, because it was also in the border. So
I see.
And then I got invited to the interview with my supervisor, my future supervisor in the company. So I went there, I had the interview. Also, yeah, for them it was very important the fact that you have like a big background. So I began with infertility, then I moved to neuroscience. So I did quite a lot of different stuff. And that's important because as clinical research associate, you have different projects. You can have oncology, you can have cardiology, you can have ophthalmology, like everything, basically.
No, that's a good point. Well, let me just jump in for those of you listening. I think, and as PhDs, we get used to focusing on a very narrow field, and we think, oh, I'm in chemical engineering, or oh, I'm in immunology. I got to find something exactly for that. But a lot of positions, especially clinical associates, they're looking for you to be able to learn multiple scientific positions. So you almost want to leverage the fact that you can learn anything. And we talk about PhDs being doctors of learning. So just highlight the fact that you have experience with multiple disciplines and can learn any discipline quickly.
That was a very important point for them, yeah. And then after that, I had like a last interview with HR again, because actually my supervisor, she doesn't speak German, but it was necessary for my position and the HR person could speak German. So she was kind of evaluating my level. And then I got the offer. So that was the process. And then, I began to work in the office in the Netherlands. And after some time, I wanted to change to Munich because, personal reasons. And I was also living here before. I did the change quite fast. I began in April in the company, and at the end of January, I was already in Munich.
So that's great. So that definitely is from A to Z, and I want to jump in on a couple of key points. So in terms of the interviews, you did a phone screen first with the recruiter.
Yeah.
And then you did. And what was that like? Was it kind of just more transferable based questions, or since it was a recruiter, did they focus more on the technical side?
Let me think. Actually, what he really wanted to know if I was really interested in the position. That was a very important point for him. And also, my level of language. I mean, he couldn't also speak German, but he, from the beginning, put that as a very important point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the language here was definitely a unique thing for this position. But I like what you said about him gauging your interest. And this is something that comes up a lot. And I think as PhDs, we always think, well, I don't want to come on too strong. I don't want to be too interested or too enthusiastic, but that's actually wrong. You want to be very enthusiastic for the position because they're looking for people who are interested, especially as a PhD. They don't want to think that you're going to go back into academia or you're
No, they want you 100% there. And you also need to have good questions prepared for them that they show that you are engaged, that you want that position.
And so then you had the phone screen, and then you went directly to, was it a site visit where you met the director, or?
No, then I had the phone call with HR.
Okay.
That was also fun. And then I got invited to the company to have the interview with my line manager.
And was it just just the one interview, or did you have
Just one
multiple?
interview with my line manager and another colleague that
Okay.
was working in the same position.
Mm.
And then after that, I had again a call with HR, and that was it
So then
was
a phone screen afterwards too,
yeah.
essentially. Okay. And that's good to know because again, we see real variety there in terms of
Yes.
phone screens, sometimes before and after, sometimes site visits with just a couple of people, like you said, and sometimes many. Was there any unique challenges that were kind of associated with you, or something that you would say was different for getting into a clinical associate job? Like, was there certain different types of questions or different types of considerations versus other positions?
Wow, they pointed very strongly in the interview that they needed someone flexible, they needed someone that is able to travel, then they need someone who can communicate very good with several people and different people,
Mm.
and someone really good organized and with
Mm.
very good time management skills. Those are very key
So all
qualifications
transferable skills,
for this
right?
position. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think again we always hear that for those of you listening, right? The transferable skills are key, and they they're always simple: communication skills, organizational skills, right? Flexibility, versatility. We don't think that flexibility and versatility is a skill, but it is, and those words are really powerful during interviews. So those three things are really important for you to highlight. Don't get trapped thinking too complexly, right? It's not the complex stuff;
No,
it's really the simple stuff that they're looking for. Um, so now, in terms of your role, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about what you do day to day, and then I want to kind of bridge the gap in terms of what the onboarding process looks like for this role. But maybe you can just break it down and say, okay, a typical day or a typical week even looks like this. This is what I spend most of my time doing, meetings or flying or whatever it is.
yeah, days can be very, very different, but I think you can categorize like in two kind of days. You have the days that you are in the office, which maybe is 2 days a week, 3 days a week max, maybe sometimes 1 day a week, depending on the week. And then during this day, what you do is, reply to all your emails, contact your hospitals, talk to them if they need something, if they have some question, prepare your traveling for the visits, write reports that you need to write after your visits. You
What's it
have
called?
training.
What do you write
Sorry?
after your visit? What was it that you write after your visits?
A report, like explaining all what you did during the visit, which data you monitor, if you could do some accountability of the investigational product or of the device, if you met with the principal investigator to talk about the study, like a kind of a summary,
Mm.
collecting all the info
And
about what happened.
why is that documentation important?
Because you need when there is some doubt or you need to go back, the first thing that you check is the report, what happened during that visit.
Mm.
And also this report goes then to the sponsor. That's also how the sponsor knows what's going on, if the centers, the hospitals are doing good or not, if they have enough patients, if yeah.
So who would a sponsor be, as an example, like a company?
A company like a pharma company or a medical device company, yes.
And so maybe we can talk a little bit about the framework in this industry. So you have sponsors who are companies, and they're sponsors of hospitals in what way?
No, you have normally in like at least now in my studies, you have the sponsor like the pharma companies or the medical device companies that they have a new drug or a new medical device and they need to do some clinical studies to be able to sell it in the market. Then you have several hospitals where these clinical trials are being performed. So they are using this medical device or this drug in patients, and you have several hospitals can be in the same country, in different countries. And then we have the CRO, which we are a bit like in the middle. We are like bridging both sides. We
Mm.
are in contact with the sponsor and we go to the sites, to the hospitals where the clinical trials are performed.
Okay, perfect. And so a lot of your time is, you said 2 days at the office, a lot of time traveling, going and talking to the hospitals. You'll also talk to
Exactly.
the sponsors too, I'm assuming.
That's depends on the study. Normally, the communication is through the project manager of the study or the clinical trial manager. But for example, in case of medical devices, the CRA has more contact with the sponsor.
And then you'll spend time writing reports after those meetings. What kind of stuff do you do internally? Do you have a lot of meetings on like strategic meetings, or?
We have also like internal meetings in the company. Maybe when you get a new study, you need to be trained on that study, on that protocol. You have meetings with the different departments of the company, with the regulatory department in case some submission needs to be done to the ethics committee, with the safety group in case something happened and needs to be follow up, with other CRAs, also with the project manager. There is like a lot of people involved, so your agenda is quite nicely full with meetings when you are in the office.
Lots of meetings, yeah. But you bring up some good departments, or at least some good insights in terms of the departments. Regulatory department, you interact with a lot. Safety department, you interact with a lot too. Are there any other departments you interact with frequently?
I would say these are the two big departments in our case, because then you have several project managers, but I wouldn't say they are a department. They are involved in the study like us, the CRAs, and also project coordinators. Data management, that will be also another part, exactly.
Sadly. So data management, okay. And why would you need to communicate with, I understand the regulatory and the safety, but why would you need to communicate with data management?
Because sometimes they are not, I shouldn't say happy, but like the information that they get from the sites is not clear to them or not enough. So they need to ask back if this is correct or that was a mistake, and then normally all our work internally in the company is in English, but if they need to go back to the site, it's better if it comes from someone that speaks the same language.
And do you cover just Germany, or are you flying all over Europe?
I cover Germany. I have now some hospitals in Austria because, same language. Also, German CRAs normally go to Switzerland as well. And I have been also monitoring in Spain.
So broadly. And you're on the road about 3 days a week, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
And what's the equivalent for this position in other countries? Is it more of a liaison type position? It seems like a liaison type of position where you're, like you said, you're the bridge between the hospitals and the clients, and then your company and maybe the sponsor too. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, to my knowledge, it's not much different. I mean, probably depends on the company or depends, on the type of study or how big is the sponsor. I mean, it can be different, but I have contact also with my colleagues in Spain, for example, but they work for the same company. So normally it goes the same way.
And where do you go from here? Let's say you're the best in this position, right? Your company's ever seen. Is there like a management track, or would you move laterally to a different type of position altogether?
There is a lot of different movements that you can take from here. I think the CRA position is very good to have it, and it's a very basic work in clinical trials, and you know what happens when you go to the site, and that makes you understand a lot of things that if you have not been a CRA, could never imagine, or I have seen things that you say, no, that cannot happen. If you tell me that from outside, I wouldn't believe it. But I have been there. I know these things happen. And then it helps you later on. So normally you begin with an entry level of CRA, and then with experience and years, then you can be promoted to the different levels until senior CRA. That will be the highest position. Then from there, you can stage as a senior CRA. Another option in our company will be CRA manager. So you are like the manager of several CRAs. Another option is to become project manager or clinical trial manager. That's also an option. And then some people just change to regulatory or to safety. Like you have a lot of...
so you can move vertically and laterally as well.
Yes.
Very easily.
And then actually there is some people that just leave the CRO and then becomes project manager in the sponsor company. That's also a possibility.
Oh, so they move over to like the pharmaceutical companies. Okay. That's good to know. Yeah. So lots of options. And we see this with any type of these liaison positions because you get to interact with so many groups of people. Really. So you build your network so quickly, right? Couple of questions that came in that are good. And I wanted to circle back to onboarding anyway. So after you get hired, what does the training process look like, right? How long did it take you to get comfortable with these kind of monitoring activities and so forth? Maybe you can walk us through, okay, you got hired. What happened next all the way until now in general?
Yeah, that also depends in the company that you will be working for. In our company, they have a very nice training. So yeah, I didn't have any experience in clinical studies. I was just doing PhD, so basic research. And then you begin to have a training that is thought to be done between 3 and 6 months. You begin to have access like to fake protocols, let's say. And then when you monitor, you have like 4 different kind of visits that you can perform when you go to a hospital. You can do a qualification visit to see if that hospital would be a good candidate for your study, if they have the adequate patients that you need. You have an initiation visit. That's when all the when the hospital has been approved to work in that study.
What's that one called?
Initiation visit.
Initiation.
Then you go there and then you explain them about everything, about the protocol, about how they need to perform the study. You train them and then they can begin to recruit patients. Then you have the monitoring visit when you go and then you monitor the data. And then you have the closeout visit, and that's the last visit is when the study is finished. And then you just need to go to, get all the logs.
Debrief.
Yeah, exactly. So in the training, you get training in these 4 visits, and you have like 4 mock visits. So like when you go to the site, when you go to the center, what do you need to do? They give you data that you need to monitor, and then you need to find the mistakes or the things that are not logical. Then you have like a CRA mentor, and then you go with him or her like for 4 to 6 visits, also to several studies, different hospitals, so you get a good feeling what would be your work. And then once you are done with training, then you will begin to get slowly projects, and then you go by yourself.
So one thing I want to call out here, everybody's attention to, is we don't talk a lot about the onboarding process and the association, but 3 to 6 months, very common, right? Especially 6 months is very common for getting onto a new company in terms of the onboarding. So you'll go through this training process. When they hire you, they want you to have experience and be able to hit the ground running, but they're always going to train you in their internal processes, especially with anything, clinical or from a large company.
Yeah, you need to read like the whole amount of SOPs that the company has. Yeah, takes some time.
SOPs, training, and then in this case, use cases, case studies, essentially, where your mock visits. So that's really informative. Thank you for that. This takes us to the end of this Cheeky Scientist radio podcast episode that you have been listening to. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a review and let us know what you would like to hear more of. If you're interested in transitioning into industry, go to phdsgethired.com and enter your name and email address, and we will give you information about our PhD job search blueprint, specifically for PhDs who want to transition into industry, as well as our PhD-only 4,000 plus member private job referral network. Again, go to phdsgethired.com and enter your name and email address now. As always, remember your value as a PhD and start thinking and acting like a successful industry professional.